over the past 9-10 months, our ODFW staff has implemented successful hunting seasons for archery, any legal weapon. Over the winter and spring, we conducted our population inventories. And then in the spring, we also summarized and analyzed our hunt data from the 2025 hunts and put that all together and made some recommendations about things that we think should change based on what we're seeing on the ground as far as population changes in our wildlife or in our hunts. So now we're at the point where we're going to share all those proposals and suggestions to you all as our constituents and our members of our hunting public. And then we will present that to our agency for adoption at our September commission meeting in Ontario. And so if you're interested in providing comment to that process at the commission level, we'd certainly encourage you to submit those comments using the link there on the slide. And just know that any in-person or virtual testimony needs to be signed up 48 hours in advance to make sure that we can accommodate everybody that wishes to testify. And then after those are approved, those regulations for 2026 will go out to our publisher, and you should see the next version of our new big game regulation book by December 2025. With that, I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Taylor, and he will go over some of the statewide proposals that we're considering.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. My name is Taylor McCroskey. I'm the acting district watershed manager for the John Day watershed. Manager, if you advance that slide. So these are the proposed season dates for 2026. So really the kind of gist here is just season moves back one day. I'll let you look through that for 10-15 seconds so you can look what all those seasons look like, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So we're going to talk about a couple of for 2026 for the general regulations. So next slide, please. So if you look at these top two proposals, those used to be one proposal, regulation. And ultimately, we decided to break those into two. So the first one is the use of artificial light with exceptions, including laser sights, but does not prohibit battery-operated sights, which only light the reticle. For the second proposal, to hunt for wildlife with an electronic device attached to or incorporated in the firearm scope, except cameras and scopes containing lighting reticles, and scopes can be capable of receiving information from an electronic device are also prohibited. And then the third one with the new technology that's come out as of recently, to hunt, locate, or scout for the purpose of hunting any wildlife or infrared, including thermal or any other night vision sight or equipment except trail cameras. Next slide, please. And then the last and final one for proposals would be request for prohibited hunting within a certain distance of wildlife crossings. We realize that this is an important thing to address and are trying to do so. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Josh Smith, our mule deer coordinator. He's going to talk about the major changes that are occurring within the mule deer regs.
All right. I guess I'll go back here. I'm Josh Smith. I didn't realize I was muted there. I am based out of LeGrand, Oregon, and am the mule deer coordinator for Eastern Oregon here. So in last year, our mule deer plan was adopted. Again, that plan was the old plan was 20 years old. It was last updated in 2003. So in that intervening 20-some years since the last adoption, there's been a lot of new information gleaned on mule deer biology and ecology, movement, and that sort of thing, and especially within the state. A lot of really Oregon-specific data we brought in to hopefully implement more scientifically based management for mule deer in the state. And I'll talk a little bit about that in these next few slides here. But a lot of that information is going to trickle down into our harvest management strategies that will begin in 2026. So some of that information that I was mentioning there in that previous slide relates to some of the collaring efforts we did. Really, since about 2005 to 2021, we collared over 1,500 mule deer to get an idea of their movements and how they were moving across wildlife management units and that sort of thing. So really the culmination of all that work resulted in us delineating 22 herd ranges around Eastern Oregon. And when we say a herd range, what we mean is kind of an area that contains both the summer and winter range. So kind of and those migration corridors that mule deer use throughout the year. So really kind of getting at the year-round movements of most of our mule deer. And we'll use these to kind of guide our new hunting regulations and talk about that more on the coming slides too. I would just point out that we do have some ongoing collaring efforts in northeastern Oregon. We'll be doing that for the next 2 or 3 years. So we may end up seeing a few more changes up in this neck of the woods in the coming years, but we'll have a little bit of time before we make those decisions, as that information is ongoing. So as a result of those 22 different herd ranges, we identified those. Ultimately, what we had a lot of meetings and a lot of heartache over this, but we ultimately came to the conclusion that what really kind of worked itself out was a change in boundary. So we were going from these 47 wildlife management units that we had historically in Eastern Oregon down to 43 new deer hunt areas. And this slide here on the right really just kind of shows those black outlines are our historic wildlife management unit boundaries, and the colored areas represent new deer hunt areas. And I know it's a really busy slide, it's hard to interpret, but we do have an interactive map on our webpage. If folks want to go over there, you can kind of scan, kind of look at your old hunting area, compare where you might be, and figure out which new hunt area you might want to apply for, depending on where you want to hunt deer in the future. There's also on that same webpage, there's a lot of really good information going to go into a lot more detail about why those changes are necessary, why we're doing a lot of the things we're doing. If folks are interested, a lot of frequently asked questions we've got have been addressed on that webpage too. Or you can just Google my ODFW articles, Eastern Oregon hunts there on the bottom. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is get away from these kind of socio-political boundaries that mule deer don't observe and go to a more biological boundaries. And this way, what we ultimately hope to do is match our harvest with our monitoring efforts and get a better idea, an estimate of how harvest is impacting populations and how different management actions, be that habitat work, predator removal, whatever the case may be, how those are impacting populations. And in order to do that, we really need to align our harvest with those herd ranges. So we need our monitoring efforts aligned with our harvest data to more accurately reflect what's going on with these mule deer populations. So this map here just kind of shows what those new 43 deer harvest areas look like on the landscape there, that map on the right. So one other thing that folks are going to notice when they open the book in 2026 is a new hunt nomenclature, new hunt numbers for Eastern Oregon mule deer hunts. And kind of how we've broken these out is they're going to start with a 2-digit alphanumeric thing. And it's going to be like for Northeast, that's going to be NE, and that's a designation of the herd range. And then similar to our old structure, a 101 would represent the 100 series, the 601 would represent the 600 series, that second number. And then the last 2 digits on there, the last 2 numbers in that initial one is going to represent the actual hunt unit within that herd range. So for this instance, that NE 101 would represent the Northeast 100 series, any legal weapon buck hunt in the 01 unit of the Northeast herd range. And I've just got a couple more of these to illustrate, very similar. Our archery will maintain the same nomenclature at the end, R for archery, M for muzzleloader, that sort of structure will maintain the same sort of structure at the end. And then lastly, we just added a -1 here on the end to indicate, like a first or second season onto that. So a couple of other things, really want to make this point clear. Even though these are going to be new hunts and new hunt numbers, they constitute new hunts. What this means for preference points is really nothing. You're going to keep your preference points. If you have X number of preference points for a 100 or 600 series tag, you will maintain your preference points. But what will change likely is our ability to kind of predict how many preference points it might be needed for a new hunt area, at least for 2 to 3 years until we get, a few hunts under our belt. Then folks can kind of maybe make a little bit more informed decision on how they want to burn preference points and that sort of thing. So all areas are still available to be hunted. Your preference points won't change, but again, what might change is that predictability and what it might take for a certain area. We've gotten a lot of questions too about landowner preference tags. That system was scheduled to sunset in 2026. The current, limited option on that has passed and is not going to be sunsetted in 2026. So they'll maintain some structure. We're still working out this, and as soon as this is approved, this will be one of our top priorities to get working on. But one thing I guess I just would point out related to this is likely what will happen is, folks that are currently enrolled will likely have to re-register based on these new hunt areas or herd range, whichever, their property falls in. So that may be some changes that folks will need to be aware of. A couple other things, we did go as a result of this new hunt structure. We will be dropping premium tags from 67 to 63 for deer. Just again, the nature of reducing that down from the wildlife management unit structure. And we might see some small adjustments to our raffle and auction tags. Again, just kind of as a result of restructuring from that wildlife management unit structure to the new deer hunt areas. And with that, I will turn it over to Holly, I think.
Thanks, Josh. Before I get started, I just wanted to mention to those folks who jumped on late that on every slide at the top corner, there's a QR code. You can use that QR code to access our survey page. And if you'd like to enter comments into this discussion, that's where you would enter them. So for our deer proposals for the 100 series in East Region, we are proposing a 10% tag decrease due to a shift in hunts, boundaries, and biological need, as you heard from Josh. However, we are also proposing an increase in whitetail tags, and that's going to preserve opportunity. For the 600 series in East Region, we're proposing a 16% tag increase. This is largely driven by an increase in whitetail deer tags. We also wanted to mention that in Wallowa County, we have 3 new hunts that start this year, and those have a mandatory CWD submission requirement. And then in the next slide, we're going to talk about how we're separating out mule deer and whitetail deer hunts. So better managed deer populations, mule deer and whitetail deer were split into 2 separate hunts for the Grand Juan watershed. You can see that image here. That's the area that we've done this in. The series stays the same. So 100 and 600 series haven't changed. Whitetail deer and mule deer will fall under those series. So you'll have twice as many hunts to choose from, but you have to choose which species you want to hunt within that series. So instead of seeing 1 buck with a visible antler, you'll see a hunt that's labeled 1 whitetail buck with a visible antler or 1 mule deer, so forth.
Let me say that.
When allocating tags for each species, we looked at the harvest records for the past 5 years and used the average harvest for each species to divide the tags between those species. Our bag limits have been adjusted for each species, with mule deer tags decreasing, as I mentioned before, and whitetail deer tags increasing, which maintains opportunity. And to maintain consistency and reduce confusion, the whitetail deer hunts are going to follow the same hunt area boundaries as the mule deer hunts. Also, whitetail deer and mule deer hunts will operate at the same time frame.
Thanks, Holly. It looks like we have a question from someone that we'll just wait till the end to get that from Michael. But my name's Andrew Rosenberg. I'm the district wildlife biologist here in Pendleton, and I'm just going to talk briefly about some of our other proposals for other species. So starting off here, you can see the elk slide. There really isn't a whole lot of change here. In the 200 series hunts statewide, we're looking at a 2% tag decrease. Some of the proposals that we have for Northeast Oregon specifically are to decrease tags in the Minam unit. And then another proposal out of the Umatilla district to get rid of a youth hunt that we have. The reason for that is that that hunt has some harvest coming out of the Mount Emily unit that we wanted to cut. So we basically what we did, we deleted that youth hunt and made it into 2 separate hunts, a Ukiah and Walla Walla hunt, and the tag numbers add up to the same number. So the other thing that you'll see here is that our agency just going through a review of our new controlled archery elk hunts that started in 2022. So we just wanted to take a look at the last 3 seasons of having controlled archery elk hunting in these new units that were once in the general season. So just a couple of bullet points here. In 2022, we had 16 controlled archery hunts established in Northeast Oregon that were once in the general season. 4 of those 16 hunts ended up having leftover tags after the draw. And really the biggest thing that we noticed, and I guess one of the things that we'll need to continue looking at as we make further management decisions if we want to add any tags in the rifle season or anything like that. All 14 WMUs affected by these new controlled hunts showed a pretty significant decrease in the number of people hunting in those units when we went from general season to controlled archery. For pronghorn, we're proposing a slight tag increase statewide, 1%. Not quite sure what hunt that's in, but there's a hunt out there that has some more tags in it. For our bighorn sheep proposals, we're proposing a 1% tag decrease. That's due to the Wanaha unit hunt, which is on a 3-year rotation between some treaty tribes and ODFW. For mountain goat, proposing a 10% tag decrease statewide. It sounds like a lot, but it's really only 2 tags. Those are being reduced this coming season due to tag rotations with tribes as well. One of those is a hunt in the Cascades and the other is in the Strawberry Mountains. For bear proposals, we're proposing a tag increase. 1% tag increase. That's from an increase that we have to the Mount Emily Walla Walla controlled spring bear hunt. And this is the last slide that I'm going to talk about. It's a pretty busy slide, but it's just a summary slide. Basically shows you what we had for tag totals for last year versus this year for each species. I'll just kind of let you guys look at that for maybe 10 seconds. And then we'll jump over to Ryan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Torland. I'm the district wildlife biologist based out of John Day. I'm going to finish up the last few slides. So, as folks know, we're getting chronic wasting disease is just knocking on our door. Idaho has it just across the Snake River. And we're continuing to ask hunters to check their animals, the harvested animals, for CWD. There's a variety of places to do that. We have check stations that we're running now in various places about Oregon. Certainly the district offices could be done that. Meat processors can do that as well. And then taxidermists finally. If you want to know more, there's a QR code here. You can scan. Also go to MyODFW to get more information about where you can get that scan and information about it. Go to the next slide. So this just kind of shows that we are increasing our sampling effort, which is important with CWD to try to get at enough of a threshold that will detect it soon. If it does move in, we want to have actually around a 10% of what's harvested or what's taken out there. We're not near that, but we are absolutely on the rise, and it's a huge thanks to hunters to help us achieve those goals so they can kind of help us manage wildlife. So it's a big kind of kudos to everybody, and we want to see that continuing. And as much as we can do voluntary check-in, that'll help us kind of moving forward into the future. So once again, thanks a bunch. A lot of that is mule deer, but a lot of elk as well. So we're doing good on that front, and we hope to continue that. Go to the next slide. And last, just a reminder and just kind of continue to plug to help us out with turning in poachers. Hunters out on the landscape are a big part of us being able to monitor illegal activity and help turn that in and help us enforce laws. We all know it's wrong and needing help with that. You can call Star OSP or text them even, or Star 666 or 677, excuse me, or call the mobile. And there's also a QR code there. But certainly encourage hunters to turn anything in, whether that's you're seeing illegal harvest, road closures, whatever that is. It certainly helps us out. So just a continued plug for that, and we appreciate all the help you guys give us. I think with that, Jeff, we're turning it back to you.
Great. Thanks, presenters. Yeah, with that, we're just going to move to question and answers. We do have several questions that were submitted over the last several days that we're going to get to first. My colleague Michelle out of our information education department in Salem is going to help moderate the Q&A part of this. Again, so we'll work through the questions that are on the forms that we were submitted, and if there's time left over, we'll get to the live questions here from participants. So Michelle, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. We got actually several questions about 644A3, which is a very coveted Umatilla National Wildlife Refuge hunt, and concerned that it's no longer listed, that it's been canceled. Melody, I'm wondering if you can take that question.
Good afternoon. Yes, thank you. Let's see if I can get the camera turned on. I'm Melody Henderson. I'm one of the biologists out of the Heppner District Office. That hunt has not been canceled. It has been renamed along with all the new hunt structures. Everything's getting a name. There is one discrepancy in there. So if you're looking at it, if it's on page 2 of the draft 600 series, it says new in 2026, like all the other ones does. It is going to be HX, which is going to be Helix 601-1 and -2. And then it'll have the name Umatilla National Wildlife Refuge number 1 and number 2. So when you're looking at that, the number 1 is going to have 9 tags. That's the antlerless hunt. The number 2 is going to have 2 tags like it has in the last couple years. There's a discrepancy where it says 1 antlerless. That will be changed to 1 deer. That is that 1 deer coveted hunt. There's just a discrepancy that we've missed in the bag limit. So I hope that answers your questions.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question, this one for Jeff Yankee. We got several questions on predator management, the ban on hunting with dogs. Can you talk a little bit about predator management as it relates to mule deer and other game species?
Yeah, thanks for everybody that submitted questions on that. I know this is a really important topic and one that there's a lot of strongly held beliefs over in Oregon. As you mentioned, the ban on hounds was a result of Measure 18, which was passed by ballot initiative in 1994. This restricted the use of hounds for hunting and for black bears and cougars in the state of Oregon. Because it was a ballot initiative, I just want to make clear that it's not a restriction that ODFW has the authority to change. But since that event in 1994, we have focused on tools to manage predators that we do have the authority to control. For example, through hunting opportunities. For both black bears and cougars, we do offer additional tags that allows hunters to harvest 2 of each species per year, for example. Since 1994, tag fees have been reduced and stayed very low for both black bears and cougars as well. They're currently $16.50 and the least expensive hunting tag that you can buy in the state. And we're not scheduled to change that. We also include both tags with the purchase of a sports pack, both for youth and adults. And for example, cougar hunters have a benefit from being able to hunt year round. So we've really tried to, to counteract that, we've really tried to limit the barriers between hunters and predator hunting in the state of Oregon. But in addition, we've done several incidences of administrative predator removal efforts across Eastern Oregon, for example, our cougar target areas. And from 2009 to 2017, we funded the administrative removal of cougars in 7 different areas in Eastern Oregon. And those removals were carried out by Wildlife Services, so professional agents. What we learned from that was only one of the areas met the actual target removal objective due to the cost and difficulty of removing large amounts of predators on the landscape. And there was a couple areas that showed some benefit to elk populations, but none of those efforts resulted in long-term benefits to mule deer populations. So something that we've tried, but we just can't find a way to make it cost-effective and beneficial to mule deer especially. In addition, we are currently engaged in some major research investments to understand what is driving mule deer declines in Eastern Oregon. We have been doing that for years. That work does continue to this day and has informed a lot of our current mule deer management. Prior research has shown that cougar predation does have a strong effect on elk population, but not bears per se. And we're applying similar methods that were used in that research project to apply to mule deer across Eastern Oregon. And in our current research efforts, predators are a focus of that research, but we're also looking at all factors regarding mule deer survival. And what we're learning is that mule deer are also showing very, very notable nutritional deficiencies across Eastern Oregon. which, on its own can also impact survival, reproduction, and vulnerability to predation. So take home, I think right now is while this is ongoing, this work does take time to complete properly, but we're also understanding that these limiting factors are also very interrelated. And so, for example, deer that are healthier through an environment that provides more nutrition to them can evade predators more successfully and produce more successfully. And a habitat that also has very different mosaic approaches to cover habitat provides that high quality cover that can also help deer and other prey evade predators as well. So I also understand that this is a topic that we could probably have a whole another webinar on. But out of the interest of a lot of the other topics and questions that folks want to ask and have asked already, we're just going to limit the predator discussion to this response. But I'd definitely encourage you that if you have more thoughts, questions, or feedback to share on this topic, please reach out to your local ODFW staff.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Here's a question about spring bear seasons. Can ODFW increase spring bear tags, which are a great chance to hunt outside of traditional seasons? Andrew Rosenberg, perhaps you can take this one.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take that question. It's a great question. We have been looking at that over the last few years in Northeast Oregon, and we have increased some tags. And the way we go about doing that is we have some metrics that we use in our bear plan that have to do with median age of harvested males and females. So kudos to hunters for continuing bringing in bears for mandatory check-ins. But basically what we're doing is we're looking at the age data from those teeth to see whether or not our current harvest levels are sustainable. And then in places where we see room for more harvest, we do add tags and have been doing that in some units in Northeast over the last 3 years. And we'll continue to look at that in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And here's a question for Josh Smith, the mule deer coordinator. Other than reducing the number of tags available for each unit, what other management practices are being considered to reduce the decline in deer herds?
That is also a great question. Jeff alluded to some of that. We do have a couple of research projects currently taking place where, as Jeff mentioned, we are looking at all aspects of mule deer survival, what's influencing reproduction, fawn survival, adult female survival particularly, how nutrition interacts to affect, ultimately predation and those reproduction rates and that sort of thing. So I'd point to those two things as highly beneficial. I would just say, first of all, that we here at ODFW understand and sympathize. I mean, we understand that, when we're losing, approximately 47% decline in our mule deer population over the last 30 or 40 years, that we need to do some things to turn this trajectory around. And quite frankly, if folks want to look at the new mule deer plan, we've outlined a lot of things in there, and we've really tried to be as specific as possible where we could within each herd range. I think, as we think about the different factors influencing mule deer declines around the state, there's certainly not a silver bullet in any one area. There's a lot of things taking place depending on where you are in the state, which herd range you're in, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of very specific things that need to be targeted in those areas. But we have a whole section in the mule deer management plan where we get into, again, really targeted actions that we as an agency and our partners are taking to try and improve mule deer habitat and improve population performance in general in these different herd ranges. And again, I guess I would just really kind of ask folks to go there and look at it, because there's really just a lot of things in there, and it's not one single thing that we can point to. It's a lot of things depending on where mule deer are around the state. So.
Okay, thank you, Josh. So that's, we suggested people use this WUFU form. That's kind of our last question from the WUFU form. Would encourage people on the call to continue to use that form. We'll share that feedback with the commission. But I think we're in a position that we could take some questions, just if some people want to raise their hands. Okay, so Mike.
So I was on the statistics page on the website, and I saw that the 2025 mule deer composition counts and population estimates have been posted, but they're posted for the old units. And I'm trying to understand why, if we're doing these new areas, how you can do the counts for the old units when you're counting in these new areas. It's confusing.
I'm certainly willing to kind of address that for you, Mike. Yeah, I mean, really the primary reason is we're currently setting tags right now for the 2026 seasons. That's what we're doing, and these changes will be implemented then. So we're trying to give folks as much information as possible at this new structure. We do anticipate getting some new metrics out at the new herd range scale. So a lot of our data will be more focused on the herd range scale, like your buck ratios and your doe to fawn ratios will be more at the herd range scale. We're still kind of working through, what kind of statistics we'll be presenting at the specific deer hunt area. A lot of that will probably just be more harvest metrics, because as you saw from some of those movements on that one slide, where we count deer may not be where you're harvesting them. So these deer spread out. We often comp and count animals on winter range. Folks are harvesting them on summer range. So there's a disconnect there between those population metrics if we tried to do that at a hunt area or something. But we are actively working on getting some new information up, and it'll be up probably fairly shortly. Once we get this new process, the new tag totals out, and that was kind of the first process, was getting tag numbers at this new scale. We're kind of going off scratch here, and quite frankly, we're probably going to get a couple things wrong, to be honest, and we may have to adjust in the future. We're learning with you all as we figure out how hunters distribute themselves and how our harvest. With our new modeling approach, we've been having to make some assumptions on where our harvest is coming from. So it'll be a little bit of a learning curve for us too, as we go through that new process. But we do think ultimately this will be the best thing for the resource. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Well, no, I'm still confused. So you posted, for example, specific buck ratios, fawn ratios, and population estimates for the current Ochiko game unit. But you didn't count them that way, as I understand it. You didn't go count the Ochiko unit, you counted the herd range unit. So do those numbers have any validity of any kind? And if they do, how did you come up with them?
Those numbers are coming from a variety of different methods, I would say. First of all, I mean, not a variety of different methods, but so we've been counting at this herd range scale for quite some time. We have tried to make our assessments to fit within the WMU scale, knowing that that's how we needed to present data for people trying to make informed decisions when they go out and purchase a tag. And so we just kind of kept that structure for one additional year. But we have recognized, as we've gone through this mule deer management plan and that sort of thing, we've recognized for some time that when we're counting deer, I mean, I don't know what we put up specifically, but I know historically when I looked at this, when we were redoing the management plan, for instance, we would estimate a wintering population of 400 deer in the desolation unit, right? And we're issuing 500, 600, 700 tags for that. We know that 400 deer was based off a winter range estimate. It was not accurately reflecting the number of deer that were available to be harvested in there. And so we applied some of those same metrics, like when we go out and do our population surveys, let's say, our site wrap flights, we call them. There are our spring abundance estimates. We can try to extrapolate those out to a wildlife management unit scale.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the count counts and the population counts.
Okay,
Because-
I do want to move on to Stan, just so we have
All right.
time for other questions. Okay, so Stan, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah.
And I think actually real quick, I think this would be a good thing maybe to follow up with your local district biologist, or perhaps with Josh, just to get, down to that level of detail. But Stan, what's your question?
Yeah, my question is, do you have any programs in place to work with private landowners to improve deer habitat? Did you hear me on that?
Yes, I know we have access and habitat And we don't really have like an A&H expert on the call, but it sounds like maybe Ryan, you have some information about this program or other programs.
Yeah, so there are a number of programs. We do have kind of region funds that we use to work with private landowners. They're called Deer and Green Forage. And those are generally smaller dollar things, but we can use that for seeding, juniper removal, seed planting of some sort, shrub planting. So, and then even with the A&H program, habitat improvement is part of that landowners can put in for, work with our local staff to deal with. We also partner with NRCS and SWCD, and sometimes we'll funnel funds through them. And there's also funds available through NGOs like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and the Blue Mountain Elk Initiative. So there is a variety of tools and a variety of funding available to help private landowners with projects. If you own property and are looking to do that, I'd contact your local biologist to kind of get specific. Generally, we'd work one-on-one with a landowner to try to figure out what would be best and what we have funding for.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a question from Jim from OHA. Hi, Jim. If you're talking, you're still muted, Jim Atkinson. Jim Atkinson, are you able to go off mute? Might be off the call. Okay, and hold on, I just want to make sure that no other questions came in through the WUFU form. Okay, Mike, I think maybe we can take a little bit more, but I do think you may want to talk with Josh Smith offline, but do you want to ask another question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people on the call deserve to get an answer to these questions. You've posted statistics, which hunters will take as being accurate statistics on mule deer comps, bucks per 100 does, fawns per 100 does. In the past, that's been done by going out and actually counting on the unit. In the past, you actually published that. It would say you counted 1,000 deer, 120 bucks, 400 fawns or whatever, and that's where the stat came from. Now you've got those same stats posted for the units, all the units, but you're not counting them that way. And I'm trying to understand where you're getting the stats you're posting for the Ochco unit, for example, with 22 bucks per 100 does or whatever it was, when you didn't count the Ochco unit that way.
And I'm not sure if Josh or another district bio wants to handle this. Obviously, this is the, this is Northeast, so this is.
Biologists should know the answer to that are on the call.
Well,
this is not the Prineville district. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
I'll try to explain it real quick, and if it doesn't work out, we could just chat over the phone or something like that, or Josh can. But so basically, when we go out and fly, we collect spatial information on every group of deer that we count, and so it doesn't matter whether we want to show you guys the data from a herd range or from a WMU. All that I have to do is bring that into my computer and draw a little loop around it, and then I can produce a buck ratio, whether it's for a herd range or a WMU, and put that on our website. And so it's the spatial information that we're collecting as we fly that we use to give you the information currently from a WMU, and we can very easily transition to that next year by herd range.
So for the Ochco unit, the only numbers that showed up in that report were the deer you actually counted on the Ochco unit.
They would have been, yes.
But you're flying a lot less of the Ochco unit than you used to.
I can't speak to that because I don't work in the Prineville office.
How about in your units?
Can you say the question again?
Well, again, my understanding is we're only doing these flights every 3 years in some of the units. And you're flying big herd range units, which aren't really don't care what the wildlife management unit is. So my understanding was that a lot of times you're not flying very much of the Ochoco unit. Well, I'll use yours. You're not flying very much of the Murderers Creek unit, for example, in this herd range unit particular year.
When you're referencing the 3-year cycle, you're referencing something that we're doing that's what we call CITERAT. That's what we use to produce. Basically, it's a more valid statistical population estimate that we put into a model, but we're still collecting comp data annually every year.
In every area.
Yes.
So you're flying the same amount of the Ochocos into this new system you used to.
Yes.
Okay, that's not what I've been told, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay, and Jim Akinson, I see you're back on the call. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, sorry about the technical
That's okay.
difficulty there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to commend ODFW for bringing about a separation between whitetail and mule deer. I think that's a wise thing to do looking into the future. And pertaining to that, my question is, will whitetail be monitored population-wise similar to mule deer looking into the future, since they're likely to, it seems like they're likely to have more pressure put upon them in areas where they occur, such as here in Wallowa County?
I don't have an exact answer for you, Jim. For Wallowa County, we are adding whitetail tags and we are interested in keeping track of how that's impacting that population. So we're already planning on doing some ground survey stuff. And in addition, all our mule deer flights, we do keep track of whitetail already. So we have been like documenting the whitetail as we fly for mule deer. In the future, we might do more robust sampling of whitetail, have its own survey. But for now, I can't really answer what direction the agency's headed in. I imagine that we'll eventually have to get to some point where we need to model or predict or do population estimates for a whitetail if we're going to keep putting so much hunting pressure on them.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got the basis for trend data looking into the future, and in those counts you've done concurrent with mule deer. So that's good. That answers my question. And again, thanks for bringing about that separation, mule deer and whitetail. I think that's a real good move.
Okay, and it looks like Stan had another question.
Yeah, I was just wondering on a unit like the Wanaha unit, as an example, do you guys have data that you guys can analyze to understand the predation of deer from the wolves up there? I mean, is that a significant problem? I mean, everybody seems to think it is, but do you guys have the data that can say one way or another?
Anybody else can chime in here too, but I can tell you, I guess specifically related to wolf predation, it's not been a major mortality source, and I think we had one. So we put out nearly 160 collars up in northeast herd range this past year. I think we've documented one wolf kill of a fawn up there thus far. That was one of the reasons we did move our monitoring efforts up to the northeast. We've been getting a lot of questions about wolf predation, but right now, wolves do not seem to be a major source of mortality. Knock on wood, at least at this point. And I think of all the, of all those 1,500 collars that were used for the herd range analysis, and I think we're up to close to 4,000 now from some of our monitoring efforts over the last several years, even post herd range analysis. I think that's only the second or maybe third documented wolf kill that we've had over any of our collared mule deer. So definitely from a population standpoint, wolves are not the issue. I mean, we certainly have greater impacts from several other predators on the landscape.
So to add on that real quick, so what are they eating? I mean, are they a bigger impact on the elk population then?
That's most of the research that we've done on wolves thus far has shown that they tend to take a lot more elk than deer, although deer can be a a fairly significant portion. And again, they're probably taking deer. It just does not seem to be a major component. And it's definitely not been a major component of our collared sample for sure. So, but yeah, I would say mainly, for the most part, wolves do seem to be mainly keying in on elk, and, you know, elk calves specifically. That does tend to be a larger portion of their diet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and then so Mike and Jim both have their hand up. Mike, if you want to ask your
I'm
question.
sorry. I didn't
Okay.
want
Okay. Jim, do you have a question? No. Okay. All right. So that's actually all we have, but just to remind people of how the rest of it will work. We'll go to the commission in Ontario. I think it's Friday, September 12th. They take both remote and in-person testimony at that meeting. There's also a way to submit comments to the commission through the rulemaking page, and that's on odfw.com. If you go on the left-hand side, you'll see rulemaking. You can click there and go to that item. And that is also linked to within the news release that we put out about this. So Travis, are you able to, your hand is still raised. I see it says you're on hold, but you're still on mute. Okay. All right. So thank you everyone for coming. Jeff or anyone else, does anyone have anything else they want to say before we hit leave here?
Yeah, great job facilitating, Michelle. Just want to again express my gratitude for everyone's engagement tonight and for taking time out of your schedules to join us. Your engagement, your feedback, your input we are entirely dependent on, and so is our wildlife that we care so much about. So thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And as Michelle said, there's lots more opportunities to engage after this. So if there is anything that brought up more questions to you after this webinar, please contact your local ODFW staff. And if so desired, please participate in the commission process when it comes time in September. But again, just thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we'll wish you all well. Have a good night.
And one more thing I want to add, especially to the people who are part of OHA or any other sportsman groups, we could use your help getting the word out about these changes. We don't want to take hunters by surprise, but of course everyone's busy, so they may not notice until they go to apply for their tag. So appreciate your help getting the word out after September, and I'm available to help with any of that. I'm on the information team. So, and thank you again for all you do for wildlife.